I dread the day when you realize you're a separate human being.
This is indeed a disturbing universe.
Hello and welcome back. Today we're looking at the finale of Season 1, which was intended to be the series premiere. But because the animation came out so terribly wrong, most of it had to be reanimated by David Silverman. But that first color screening of this episode almost destroyed The Simpsons before it even began. So before we get started, here is some of the footage from that original color screening.
Hi, David Silverman.
This is Matt Groening.
Jim Brooks.
Al Jean.
Okay, reliving the most horrifying experience in our professional lives. Well, there's some competition.
Imagine sitting there for the first time after working for so long on trying to make a show that you really wanted to be great, and this is...
Oh my God.
It's so off-model.
You know what else I like about the wee hours of the morn? This is our time to be together.
And
You can see Marge just gains and loses weight, you know.
Yeah. Here's where she turns into a frog.
Gee whiz, cartoon. But maybe every great show started like this. Maybe there's a Walt Disney sitting and seeing Steamboat Willie for the first time. And
Or maybe Bill Cosby has an episode where he gained and lost weight.
Everything's rubbery.
Oh my
and
gosh.
It's just...
I feel sorry for us in retrospect.
I'd cancel the show now.
Gee whiz, man.
Lordy,
I mean, this is some metaphor for something. I mean, there is a way for our spiritual renewal if we just get the right message from this.
Yeah, they don't even obey the laws of physics. It's amazing.
Well, he's extremely so Fred Flintstone kind of...
Gee whiz.
just always...
Gee whiz.
It's the smuggest...
caramba.
The smuggest Homer you ever did see. Just
Well, we haven't seen that since that day 10 years ago.
No.
Oh my God.
Hey, let's keep this rolling. This is truly...
He has a commentary of all expletives. Gee, oh, ouch.
Oh, no. Oh.
he's
there's
walking
more.
into a painting. Oh, no, that's the kitchen.
This hasn't been telecine, right, David?
Right, and so the color seems bleached out, and of course it hasn't been edited and timed out, but I don't think that would
Let's
have
keep
helped
going.
it.
Let's do this. This is fun.
You can pick out the parts of the commentary you want.
It's like therapy.
Self-Schadenfreude.
Yeah, keep going. I want to see the rest of this. I want to see how
To
this
tell you the
comes
truth,
out.
I've seen parts of this, but no one ever showed me the whole thing.
Isn't it amazing?
No, it's as bad as advertised. It really is.
No, if this is what we were stuck with, there would have been no show.
Yeah, I believe it.
Well.
I think
And I sometimes I've seen other shows come in the last decade where it's obvious that's just much more minor mistakes made in tone and they kill the show.
Yep.
It's really hard to get the tone right. I mean, I'm not saying it's not easy, but boy, this is not right.
So this is what we had back then instead of the 3 radios circling your head. That's a big phone.
Yeah, big phone not held up to her ear.
Right.
I don't think we have glasses without pupils anymore either.
I don't think so.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
See the back to the camera now. It looks like we think it's hilarious since it's in every shot.
Yeah.
Gee whiz.
So if you're watching this at home, you can turn it off anytime.
Yeah.
But it will be in syndication as a different episode.
There's a scene coming up where the Simpsons go dancing, and I said, now remember, this is a middle-aged couple who has not been dancing for years, and they're very clumsy, and they're very stiff, but they're in love. And that was the basic direction, and let's see what happens.
You know, Marge, this is just like when we were dating.
Except for one thing.
It's just not
No
what you...
chaperone.
What's called for, you know?
The babysitter bandit has left a trail of her daring nighttime robberies across the continental United States. She could be lurking anywhere, about to descend upon another house full of unsuspecting dupes.
Wow.
In a moment, we will show you a picture of the...
Wait, is there anything else? Oh, you know what? No, there's a couple of just grotesque little things that I want to see.
I don't think Jim's into this anymore.
Wait, just it's
Hey, Jim, where you going?
this is the first walkout in audio commentary history.
One of the producers is walking out of the commentary. Bye, Jim.
So obviously the episode we're talking about is called Some Enchanted Evening. It was episode number 7G01. It originally aired on May 13th of 1990. It was written by Matt Groening and Sam Simon. It was poorly directed by Kent Butterworth, and then partially reanimated by David Silverman. And of course the showrunners were Matt Groening, Sam Simon, and James L. Brooks. And I'm sure you can clearly see that this episode was a total disaster. And in my opinion, even after David Silverman reanimated most of it, it's still a bit of a disaster. Because after watching the first 12 episodes of season 1, and then sitting through this episode at the end, just makes it look even worse. Because by the time we made it to Krusty Gets Busted, the show has already improved so much it makes this episode look terrible in comparison. I mean, it sort of feels like we're going back in time. Barney has gone back to being a blonde, Moe's back to having black hair again, and everything looks off-model and weird again. I mean, David Silverman obviously made this episode much better, but it was an extra episode thrown into his lap at the last minute. To say that he was rushed is probably an understatement. And that's what makes this episode the easiest one to skip from the first season. Even though I think it's a better episode than Moaning Lisa, after seeing Krusty Gets Busted, I just think this one is too difficult to watch. I'm just ready to move on to season 2 at this point. So let's just go ahead and get this over with. Let's analyze Some Enchanted Evening.
Let's see, you were saying the non-couch guy.
Non-couch guy.
And we had 5 variations, and that was one of them. They just go in, they sit down, and watch TV. Great gag, huh?
Bill Pie in the KBBL traffic copter.
Later that show was changed to Arnie in the Sky with Arnie Pie.
This is one of those early shows in which Maggie's sucking over dialogue, which we stopped.
Yeah.
You know, when we did Maggie Simpson dolls for Mattel, it said on the side of the package, suck, 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 and Mattel said, no. You cannot put that on one of our doll packages, so it's thwack, thwack, thwack.
So when the show was originally done, this was going to the pilot. In the intro, we had a lot of talking and introducing the characters. We just simplified it to Marge watching as people eat hungrily and ignore her.
I'd like to talk to Dr. Monroe.
First name, age, problem.
This was the last show we did in the first season, so we had learned quite a bit by now. And the animation was nice and sharp. This is actually early animation from the first version of the show. And you'll find the backgrounds here are very simple, and you cut to the new stuff, and the backgrounds are much more complex. This was, like all this animation here is what was in the original version, and this was new animation.
There's the nuclear power plant crow. It's not much of a gag, but in every establishing shot of the power plant, there's a crow.
Marvin Monroe is one of the few characters who's died during the course of the series. There's a Marvin Monroe Memorial Wing in the hospital.
Why is that? Why did we get rid of him?
Don't be ridiculous.
Good point, too.
My wife worships the ground I
Well,
walk
maybe he'll
on.
come back.
Well, you know what? I never liked the characters because I don't like those gruff voices. I don't like gravelly voices in cartoons. It sounds too forced for me. I mean, it's Harry Shearer doing it, and he does lots of brilliant voices, but this one just irritated me. I know it was supposed to be irritating, but it was.
So this commentary was recorded back in 2001, and at the time, Marvin Monroe was still considered to be dead.
So the reason why he's named Marvin Monroe is the original idea is that it was going to be revealed that his real name was Marilyn Monroe, and that's why he became a therapist, because he was really hung up on that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you didn't know that. I've never shared that story with anyone before.
When we were dating, he was sweeter and more romantic and 40 pounds thinner, and he had hair, and he ate with utensils.
Hey, isn't that your wife, Homer?
Don't be ridiculous. My wife worships the ground I walk on.
You've got to tell him you're fed up, and if he doesn't start loving, you will be leaving.
Leave Homer?
Please, don't use his real name.
Leave Pedro?
Oh, by the way, I have to say that I had Maggie falling out a lot in this episode. I think I overdid it.
Most having.
Hello, is Al there?
Al?
Yeah, Al. Last name, Kaholic.
Let me check. Phone call for Al. Alcoholic.
When did we cut out these jokes?
When they became too hard to think of.
I mean, how quickly?
Well, 4 seasons in.
4 seasons.
Yeah, we did one where Bart wanted to frustrate Jimbo Jones, so he said that he was Jimbo, and Mo came to kill him. I think that's the last time that we did it.
And of course, this was inspired by countless prank phone call tapes that circulated throughout the country, and particularly the phone calls to the Tube Bar, which got released eventually on CD. It was our tribute.
Hello, is Al there? Al, no, Kaholic. Al? Kaholic. Alcoholic. Alcoholic. Listen here, Chuck, if you come over here, I'll bust your nose.
This is Mo had black hair, and Barney had yellow hair.
Yeah, I think we changed it because the yellow seemed too much like his skin.
Yeah. Now, this was originally a different guy who did the original reading, and then Hank came in with his version and dubbed it in, right?
Yeah, and this is the sort of front angle we, stopped doing, where Mo's face seems to liquefy almost. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I think Mo is probably the ugliest character in the history of the series. Hank Azaria, it's really funny because he came in, a few episodes into the show, and he always seems to me like the new guy.
There's the empty void of the background.
We thought it was funny at the very, very beginning of the series to have names of stores rhyme or almost rhyme. So that was Howard's Flowers. And we got really sick of that idea really quickly.
Hey, Mom, how about some grub?
Well, there's a very cartoony experiment that we did, which we haven't done since, have we?
What's that?
Put a real animal noise in the mouth of a character.
We don't even put animal noises in the mouths of animals.
Right.
Doesn't start loving, you're leaving.
I didn't have any real dream sequences in this show, so we made one up, basically. So this became the dream sequence.
Have we made clear the history of this episode?
Well, I don't think so.
No, this is a
redo, shall we say.
Great stories in the annals of show business.
Yeah, this is the show that almost killed The Simpsons.
I love you, Marjorie.
Oh, I love you too.
The Simpsons? Lady, you've got to be kidding.
Yeah, this is the show that almost killed The Simpsons.
Whatever do you mean, man?
Well, I
remember that day.
We had done 13 episodes, written 13 episodes, and had worked with animators and had all of the episodes in the works before we had seen the results of any of the writing. And all the layouts were done here.
Right.
Everything was shipped off to Korea, so we really didn't know what we were going to get. And so we had a
6 months later. Now it's
6 months later, we saw the results of that first script, which was this. And
well, not this episode, what we're seeing now, but
not this particular episode, because this is the fixed-up version. But there's elements of the original episode in here.
Yes,
right?
there's a couple of shots.
What percentage of this would you say is new?
I think about 70%.
70%.
And anything that we had old, we actually had a new background too, because all the backgrounds were kind of...
But we sat there and saw the worst version of The Simpsons. Well, you can't imagine. You can't imagine how bad it was, that you can be a little off and they became sort of grotesque and everything was horrible.
The characters were rubbery and ugly. I mean, uglier. and there were extra gags that we didn't write into the show. Oh, by the way, here's June Foray, brilliant voice actress. So proud to have her on the show. She's one of the greats. But anyway, so we sat in the Gracie bungalow and we watched the results of that first episode, and it was it was painful. It was truly painful. We sat there in the dark. Al, were you there, Al?
Thank God, no.
I wasn't there.
Well, let me
either.
tell you, Jim was there. Were you there? You were
No,
there.
no.
No?
I was
Just Jim?
working on another episode.
Okay. Well, anyway,
I was working on Bart the Genius.
we sat there in the dark after the episode had finished, and very quickly the room emptied out, leaving just just a few of the people responsible. And let's see, how to put this?
I think you can say the word.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, what, do you want to say it? It's your quote.
No, you tell us.
Okay, well, Jim basically said, Jim's pronouncement was, wait, go watch this.
Smooth as a baby's behind, Papa.
By the way, his beard pops back.
Yeah, one little side note, too, is that the Mambo has gone back in style since the show debuted. They was originally kids.
Well, actually, we're digressing all over the place, but I love the Mambo. I love Perez Prado. I've gone to see him perform. I used to go see him at the Hollywood Palladium and before he died. And I thought it would be funny if the Simpsons listened to KMBO, K-Mambo, all Mambo, 24 hours a day. So that's where that came from.
You must be the babysitter.
Yes, I am Miss Botts.
So this is Ms. Botts.
Penny Marshall.
Penny Marshall, brilliant. Sort of gave her stamp of approval to the show. That was really cool. I actually had a series of babysitters as a kid, and the one I really liked was Mrs. Botts. So that's my tribute to her. I had a real babysitter. I had this other babysitter who my parents went on a 2-week trip and left us kids at home. My younger sisters, Lisa and Maggie, and me. And the second we walked, she was very nice. Just got the door shut. She pulled out a book that said Psycho-Cybernetics on the cover and said, "This my whole life is based on this book, and I'm going to teach you Psycho-Cybernetics." And all I thought was psycho. And we had to eat food in the proper order, and we had to lift up our fork with our right hand, and it was all this crazy stuff. So this is my catharsis with a babysitter.
You're gonna watch this tape, and you're gonna do what I say, or I'm gonna do something to you.
And I don't know what that is, because everybody has always done what I say.
So for many years, the entirety of season 1 has been complained about. But I'd say this episode, and even more specifically, this scene with Bart and Miss Botts gets pointed to very frequently, especially by people online wondering what the heck is going on here, and why it looks so different from the rest of the series. And I think there are lots of reasons this scene is different, but I think it's mostly because of all the in-between drawings separating the main poses. There are a ton of extra drawings here, and it is a very odd-looking scene. But I think there are others in this episode that are way worse. But this one is pretty odd. And once again, this is the reason I usually skip this episode. I mean, it barely even qualifies as a full-fledged episode of The Simpsons, even though it was written by Matt Groening and Sam Simon. It just looks terrible.
Then I'll take that one there with the beady eyes.
All right, but what was the word?
Oh, but we were seeing the show that meant that the series could not possibly work. If the next week we saw a second show as seriously off as that, and we had to wait a week before that was true, but nobody was calling the Emperor. Well, you couldn't call the Emperor anything else but naked at that moment, but it was that.
Well, the phrase I remember you hearing, and it will be forever imprinted on my brain. In the dark, Jim, you said, "This is show," and there was silence, and one of the animators said, "What do you mean, shit?" And you said, "A foul substance which causes disease." And that's when the room emptied. I think people realized it was going downhill from there. And then there was some defense. I remember a line, "Maybe your script is not so funny."
Oh, this had a great playoff because the same nameless animator, when we won an Emmy, suddenly he had, and he'd always said this about this. He said, he had come back to me and he says maybe this isn't funny, meaning that it was the script and then all of a sudden, so dissolved. We were all there winning an Emmy, and we were all getting this picture, a group picture, and I saw the animator down, getting the Emmy, and I leaned over and I said maybe this isn't funny, which was small of me, I admit. But.
And now we hang out together all the time. That's the amazing thing. We're all friends. And
but he laughs about it all the time and says how he was wrong.
But the postscript was the next week's show was Bart the Genius, which was great, directed by David, and then
David Silverman
around 100.
But the longest week ever, because Fox had committed to 13 shows. There was no way it would be anything but horrible if that persisted. It was just the longest week.
Oh, and remember,
it was really long for me.
Fox was
bullets.
supposed to come and see the show, and we made up an excuse, and I don't remember what the excuse was, because we wanted to wait till more animation came in to see whether or not we had anything to show for all our troubles.
I think it was some preposterous stories about being ashamed of our work so far.
I believe, too, wasn't the show going to debut in September? And because of this, it then premiered with the Christmas episode.
That's correct.
That's right.
That's why show 8 is the first episode.
It turned out that because of the mess ups and miscalculations, and again, it's easy to blame a few culprits, but the fact is, we were looking at this all the way through. We were looking at animatics, we were looking at designs and everything like that, and it just slipped by because we didn't know. We didn't know how to look at animation, and
nobody could reassure us during that week. David, you couldn't reassure us that it was going to be okay the following week.
Well, I was kind of out of the real loop of it. This is the first time I had directed an episode myself, so after the first disastrous episode, I just kept running my episode, my brain, all over the place and making sure I didn't make the same mistakes.
Yeah, basically each director is responsible for his or her episode, and the supervising director is the only one that works on all of them.
Which we didn't have at that time, really.
No.
I guess that's why you made me supervising director.
Anyway, that week was a horrendous week. I remember not being able to sleep, wondering if indeed this was it. My brief career in animation was over. And it was so gratifying when we saw the animation for the episode that David Silverman directed, Bart the Genius, because it meant we saw right away, oh, this is fixable. We can make this thing work.
Ironically, then, when this episode aired with the 70% fixes, a lot of people told me it was their favorite or one of their favorites from the first 13.
Oh, give me a break. Who would say that?
Are you in here? Oh, homemade pickled beets.
This is our tribute to Night of the Hunter. And now there's the pickled eggs, or pickled beets, with no beets in the jar. That's one we didn't fix.
We didn't quite fix it, went up.
One trivia note, too, is that people say, how come Santa's Little Helper was in the Christmas show and then didn't appear for many of the first season episodes? That's because the Christmas show was the 8th one recorded.
I'm going to report the babysitter Brandon. She's in our house right.
You know what's going to be the payoff of the story we just told? If we're going to show on the same DVD the what we saw that fateful day, the awful stuff. What do we like it now? What do we panic about?
Nope, it still sucks.
Well, let's not show it all. Let's just show a little piece of it, okay?
I think the government has a super fund to clean up that episode.
That'll be when you get to that part of the DVD. That'll be the only DVD with audio commentary of just us screaming.
A lot of her animation, Miss Boz, was pretty good, but what we mainly did is change the backgrounds. But you can see that a lot of the Bart animation there is pretty wild and off-model.
What you would see, too, is if a door gets shut, it flaps, it doesn't behave like a real door.
Right.
Things we don't do, haven't done since.
Maybe I'll go slip into something a little more comfortable.
Oh, your blue thing with the things?
Yeah, there you go. Your blue thing with the things. Fox did not want us to say that.
Scandal.
We know exactly what you mean.
Maggie demonstrating her dexterity even in the early days of the show.
It would be interesting to go through this and see how much of it is new. Looking at it, it almost all seems new to me, rather than the original.
Well, in the original version of the show, somebody rips the head off of one of the elves and drinks blood out of his neck.
I can't remember that. I don't know if that's actually become now a legend.
No, it's
there?
It's in there.
Want to watch the happy little elves again? Okay, but you have to untie me first.
Is that Homer's first ecstatic shudder? That's not related to food.
Remember when that was in the old version of that, the staging of that was so wild, it didn't make any sense.
No, we'd never draw their feet like that anymore, would we?
I don't think so.
All right, I suppose my work here is done.
I think one of the appeals of Homer is that he loves what he loves. You know, he loves it with all his heart. So whether it's a donut or a beer or Marge or whatever, he's just on board with it. You know, all the rest of us are feeling guilty, and we love the same thing Homer loves. But you know,
he's really relentlessly upbeat. He loves everything on TV, no matter what.
How come all the lights are on?
I don't like the looks of this.
And I don't like the looks of Miss Bot's car. Look at that thing. Even I could draw a better car than that.
We're so sorry. We're so sorry.
Please turn off the TV.
Here's double your pay. No, triple.
Thank you. Mr. Sampson, can I give you a bit of advice?
Ooh, nice trumpet mouth.
That was an example of the kind of thing we wanted to do.
Don't turn your back on that boy for a second.
But I just had to untie your babysitter and pay her off so that...
Excuse me, sir, are you saying to the world that you just aided and abetted the escape of the notorious babysitter bandit?
Well, you know, the deal with animation is you basically are creating your own universe and your own rules. And, you know, there are different rules for different animated universes. Disney has its own rules. Warner Brothers had its own rules. Hanna-Barbera has its own rules. And we're establishing our rules on The Simpsons. And I think part of the problem, again, with these early episodes, is that we hadn't really nailed down what our rules were. And my feeling was that with Disney cartoons, the entire universe was on very cushiony springs. Everything was really bouncy. And in Warner Brothers cartoons, things were like very rubber bandy. Things snapped a lot, and people went to extreme poses. And the idea in The Simpsons was, for me anyway, that these are characters, again, the middle-aged people, who are fairly stiff and awkward, but have a little bit of that rubber band in them, but basically they can't bend their arms the wrong way. They don't walk through the air and fall to their death, you know, like Warner Brothers' Wile E. Coyote, or to their non-death. And that we nail it with consistent anatomy and with realistic sound effects. There are, other than you heard on the Happy Little Elves, there are no boings in The Simpsons. There are no boings and zaps and the usual kind of cartoony sound effects. And
these were passionate conversations, remember?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things that was difficult to getting the animators on, all drawing consistently, is that they were either schooled in Warner Brothers style animation or Disney style animation, and there wasn't a lot of variations. Now, I think there's a lot of, every show that comes on has a very strong artist-driven vision of what the show should be like. But The Simpsons was very unusual then, because shows were driven by what the studio style was, not by a specific artist style. And we're following Matt's lead on that.
So as I already said earlier in this video, Some Enchanted Evening is the easiest episode in Season 1 to skip. It's at the top of the list of skippable episodes, so I really don't have anything else to say about it. But as far as Season 1 goes, I place it in a category called the formative years, in which I would also include the Tracy Ullman shorts as well. Because the cartoons in the Tracy Ullman shorts and in Season 1 were all made by amateurs, the writers and the directors. But with Season 2 came a larger budget, and all the writers and directors had gained some experience by that point. So in my opinion, Season 2 starts off a new era of The Simpsons, which I would call the foundational years. That's when you start seeing The Simpsons morph into something no one had ever seen before at the time. And Season 2 is still quite rough around the edges, but there are quite a few classics in Season 2 that beat the crap out of anything from Season 1. So with that, we're finished with the first season, and I'll be back soon with Bart Gets an F. Thanks again for watching. See you soon.